Corn School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Headline Amp Fungicide and Pride Seeds.
Werner Tobin here on the Corn School, joined now by Tracy Bowdy, Omafra entomologist. Tracy, thanks for taking the time. The final episode of Corn School for the year.
Nice to see it finally end.
Exactly. And it's been a tough year, and I want to talk to you about pests, insects. And this year really was sort of typified by lateness, late planting, late harvest. And we saw that with Western bean cutworm, for example, as well.
Yes. So not only was the corn late to get in, but even the growing degree days accumulation was slow. We had a slow start, and so Western bean cutworm was also delayed. But it still had some impact in certain regions.
Yeah, later, flight was delayed. We saw, egg laying in August. How did that translate the impact on the crops?
Yeah, so really we saw more of an impact in infestations, especially in central and eastern Ontario. In fact, with it being so late, Essex County, for example, seemed to miss it entirely. Peak flight, on average for the province, was the same time as last year, which seems weird. But when you look region to region, you realize that especially central and eastern Ontario were at least 2 weeks behind. So that flight, those moths were still looking for corn and just decided to still lay eggs despite it maybe even being past tassel. And it became a problem looking for egg masses. And they may even, we think, gone and laid their eggs right on the husk of the corn plant or of the ear, so that you didn't even really look there, and they went right to the ear when they were larvae.
I want to talk early, and that sort of perspective that, not a lot was early this year, but corn earworm was early, and a lot of talk about the potential impact of that pest going forward.
Yeah, we're quite concerned about corn earworm. It overwinters typically down in the southern U.S., especially the corn and cotton belt. But as with climate change and milder winters, we are seeing that they are likely overwintering closer and closer to us. And models show that that's going to happen, even as close as the Great Lakes. It is becoming a big concern. Quebec and New York saw flights as early as May and June. Which tells us that our normal recommendations of that's a late season pest, usually not a problem, that's going to change. So we're keeping an eye, and we'll need to start trapping to know when it comes here and be on the ready too.
I talked to a lot of farmers noticing more damage and just overall a bigger impact.
Yep, so that's our big concern, is that it might be misidentified as Western bean cutworm damage. But if they have different colors of larvae in different plants in your field, that is going to be corn earworm. It won't be Western bean. But what we're concerned about is a lot of growers think that BT is going to control corn earworm, and some of the BTs don't even work on them, but others they've already developed some resistance to because they're coming from the southern U.S. where they've been exposed to all the different BTs on corn and cotton, and as well as pyrethroids. Foliar insecticides are not always effective on corn earworms. So it's going to be, we think, the next corn pest that we're going to have to keep an eye out for.
Now, difficult to scout, and spray timing is difficult. We'll talk, I'm sure, about this through the winter and next spring, but what's our strategy next year with that?
Yeah. We're hoping that we can collectively, with the Great Lakes and Maritimes Pest Monitoring Network, really get a handle on traps across the region to know when they arrive and when they're flying. The moths lay eggs directly on the corn silks, so it's almost impossible to actually scout for them. But knowing when flights are coming in and when your corn is in that ideal fresh silk stage will help us determine when and if we have to manage. Sweet corn actually uses trap counts as their threshold, and we'll have to see what decisions we have to come to with field corn too. Big problem here, it's not going to be a yield limiting issue again. It always comes down to these corn ear pests opening up the corn ear and exposing it and allowing the introduction of corn ear molds. And so that is a big problem here in the Great Lakes, and that's really our big issue, is the quality.
Well, Tracy, thank you so much for taking the time. I know we'll have these conversations again next year. They'll be a little different. But,
let's hope 2020 is a little different.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.